This is Mac OS Ken.
The first unionized Apple Store is official, analyzing Apple, hashtag in this economy, and checking the availability of M2 13-inch MacBook Pros. It is Monday, the 20th of June, 2022. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Notion, one workspace for your whole team. Learn more and get started for free at notion.com/macosken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. The first Apple Store to unionize is now officially a thing. The Wall Street Journal says Apple Towson Town Center outside of Baltimore, Maryland formed the first union of Apple retail employees in the U.S. in a 65-33 vote. The Apple Coalition of Organized Retail Employees, or Apple Corps, voted to join the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, or IAM. IAM's international president, Robert Martinez Jr., was quoted in the Journal saying, "I applaud the courage displayed by core members at Apple Store in Towson for achieving this historic victory. They made a huge sacrifice for thousands of Apple employees across the nation who had all eyes on this election." Martinez also asked Apple CEO Tim Cook to move quickly on a contract for the workers, adding that the vote shows the growing demand for unions at Apple stores and different industries across our nation. Apple declined to comment for the Journal report. Why Bernstein's Tony Sacconaghi is bearish on Apple in a recession is the headline from an Apple 3.0 post. Now, I know what you're thinking, because it's a day that ends in Y and his name is Tony Sacconaghi. Well, his thinking is more reason than that. Though he's been so wrong for so long about Apple, it's hard not to read hope into his words. On the other hand, a broken clock is right twice a day, and this may be Mr. Sacconaghi's time. Hey, maybe I should tell you what he said. He's worried about the economy. He likes the sort of recurring revenue seen by big business players like IBM and HP Enterprise, hashtag in this economy, while transitional plays like Apple and the consumer side of HP leave him a bit cold at the moment. We continue to rate Dell and HPE outperform, wrote Sacconaghi, adding, "We see risk-reward on Apple and HPQ as neutral to potentially negative." Quoting his note, bulls argue that Apple's premium price positioning makes it less vulnerable to a recession, while bears assert that Apple over-earned last year amid the pandemic, and profits will invariably mean revert over the next few years. We lean more towards sentiment in the latter camp and see risk-reward on the shares as neutral to modestly negative. But he's been so wrong for so long about Apple. Apple 3.0's Philip Elmer DeWitt thinks the number of people practically addicted to buying the latest iPhone each year may represent more recurring revenue than Sacconaghi allows. One also wonders whether the analyst is seriously factoring in Apple's services side, including growth in ad revenue for Apple and its growing number of subscriptions. I'm not saying Sacconaghi's wrong, but it is worth remembering how long he has been so wrong about Apple. Also worth remembering, it's a day that ends in Y and his name is Tony Sacconaghi. Bernstein Research has a market perform or neutral rating on Apple shares, for now anyway. The firm's price target on the shares is $170. A follow-up to a story I brought you recently, midweek last week, The Fly ran a report saying that Morgan Stanley analyst Katy Huberty had dropped her firm's price target on Apple shares from $195 to $185. The piece had Huberty saying that hashtag in this economy, consumer spending was starting to weaken, even at the high end. The Fly said Huberty added that the risks of a pullback at even the high-end consumer space are rising, and that a majority of survey respondents expect to reduce spending in the next 6 months due to inflationary pressures. Now, all of that is true except for one thing. The note was not written by Huberty, the analyst tasked with following Apple for Morgan Stanley. A piece over the weekend from Apple 3.0 says the note was actually written by Morgan Stanley analyst Eric Woodring. Woodring's LinkedIn profile lists him as Executive Director, Technology Hardware Equity Research at Morgan Stanley. TipRanks gives Woodring a success rate of 53%. The same site gives Huberty a success rate of 59%. It's worth noting, it wasn't the person who follows Apple specifically for Morgan Stanley that lowered the firm's price target. Of course, that doesn't negate his thinking in the note. Even if the Apple engine is purring like a kitten, if the road's closed or there's a detour, there's a decent chance the journey will be rocky. Morgan Stanley still has an overweight rating on Apple shares. The firm's price target on the shares is the aforementioned $185. Worries expressed by Wall Street are showing up in numbers from the UK and Europe. Two notes of note, one on smartphone sales and another on music subscriptions. Smartphone shipments in Europe did not have a good first quarter, according to Counterpoint research. By that firm's reckoning, the 12% year-on-year drop for the March quarter yielded the lowest shipments since the first quarter of 2013. What was the issue? Yeah, you name it. Counterpoint says the decline was caused by a number of factors, including ongoing component shortages, COVID-19 related lockdowns in China, deteriorating economic conditions, and the onset of the Russo-Ukraine war. Counterpoint Associate Director Jan Stryek was quoted in the piece saying, "Existing issues such as COVID-19 and component shortages have been exacerbated by new economic and geopolitical challenges. Rising inflation levels across the region are impacting consumer spending, while Samsung and Apple, Russia's first and third ranked smartphone vendors, halted all shipments into Europe's largest market in early March of 2022. While those two do make up about half of smartphone shipments to Russia, Counterpoint says their combined shipments in Russia account for only 6% of total European smartphone shipments. The consequences of their withdrawal are, therefore, still relatively small on a regional scale. However, the impact of the war may develop wider ramifications if it leads to a drop in availability of raw materials, a rise in prices, further inflationary pressure, and/or other vendors withdrawing from Russia. Turning to specific vendors, Counterpoint says 4 of the top 5 vendors saw shipments fall last quarter, though of the 4 that fell, Apple fell least. First place Samsung saw shipments drop 16% year over year. Second place Apple saw shipments drop 6%. Third place Xiaomi saw shipments plummet 36%. Fourth place Oppo saw shipments drop 8%. And fifth place Realme kept on growing, with year-on-year shipments up 67%. On the music score, the folks at Kantar Research say the first quarter saw 1 million people in the United Kingdom cancel music subscription services. That's according to a piece from Apple Insider. While several reasons were cited for the cancellations, including technical difficulties, limited selection of music, and too many ads, the biggest reason given was a need to save money. Quoting Kantar, with inflation rising to 9% in the United Kingdom and further rises in the cost of living expected, the rising cancellation rates of music subscriptions is evidence that British households are starting to prioritize the spending of their disposable income. Kantar goes on to say over 1 million subscriptions were canceled in the last quarter, which has also seen the highest level of consumers citing they want to save money as the reason they want to cancel their subscription, at 37%. More news in a moment, but first a word from Notion, one workspace for your whole team. How many times has this happened to you? Somebody at work says something, somebody else says something else. There's confusion between the two and no one place to get it cleared up. At best, you can take time clearing up a misunderstanding, while at worst, Person A is throwing Person B under the bus, which leaves the whole team hit with delay and confusion. Clear, visible, accessible communication is important, and that is something you can have with Notion. Notion is an all-in-one team collaboration tool that combines note-taking, document sharing, wikis, project management, and much more into one space that is simple, powerful, and beautifully designed. Who said what? It's right there in Notion. What's the next step? It's right there in Notion. Whether you're working with people across the room or across the country, you'll have everything you need in one spot. Learn more and get started for free at notion.com/macOSKen. That's notion.com/macOSKen to help you take the first step toward an organized, happier team today. NOTION. That's notion.com/macOSKen. Pre-orders for the M2-powered 13-inch MacBook Pro went live on Friday, and depending on what kind of person you are, their availability is varied. If you're a McDonald's-type person, one who will simply take what they give you, you can still have it by Friday. If you're more Burger King, have it your way, that's going to take a bit more time. As of this writing, both of the off-the-rack configurations are still available for delivery this Friday, the 24th of June. That is either an M2-powered 13-inch MacBook Pro with an 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 8 GB of unified memory, and 512 GB SSD storage for $14.99. Changing anything about the hardware changes everything. Adding 16 GB unified memory to either machine pushes delivery to the 6th of July through the 8th. Move that to 24 GB of unified memory, and you are waiting until the 4th of August through the 11th for your machine. Adding extra storage also adds a couple of weeks, shifting delivery from this Friday to the 6th through the 8th of July. Different combinations yield different delivery dates, by the way. If you've got your heart set on certain specs or getting one by a certain time, best to head to Apple's online store and play with the selections. Or you can try ending the week at the mall. Apple's press release on the machine's availability says it will be in select Apple Store locations and Apple-authorized resellers this Friday, the 24th of June. And finally today, along with the new M2-powered MacBook Pro units, Apple's latest chargers are available to order. A piece from Mac Rumors says Apple's 35-watt chargers with dual USB-C ports have gone up for order and can be had super soon. Checking Sunday evening, I could have actually ordered and picked one up today at my local Apple store. I could have also had one delivered today if I'd been willing to spend the extra $9 above the purchase cost, while free delivery would have had me waiting until Thursday, the 23rd of June. That was for either the standard version or the compact size. Worth noting the compact edition is only available in Canada, China, Japan, Mexico, the Philippines, Taiwan, Thailand, and here in the US. macOSKen, brought to you by me, and sponsored by Notion, one workspace for your whole team. Learn more and get started for free at notion.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOSKen. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.